Children were playing joyfully in their grandparents' backyard when suddenly a venomous snake slithered into view. It was a creature they had never encountered before. Their carefree games turned to fear when their grandmother screamed in terror. Little did they know, an unexpected hero was about to emerge, setting off a chain of events that would leave everyone astonished. The story begins with a man named Andrew who completed his studies at university and earned a degree in accounting. He received many job offers, but he felt a tug back to Smallville Village, his beloved hometown where he spent his childhood with his father, Kevin. Although his father was no longer alive, Andrew eagerly wanted to live a village life. With determination, he returned to the village and set his sights on restoring his late father's old wooden house. Choosing a simpler life, Andrew immersed himself in farming the land and caring for livestock. He was delighted to discover that his father's old tractor still ran smoothly. Using it to plow fields and transport goods, he became a familiar figure in the village as he tended to his farm. Amid his new life as a farmer, Andrew found love with Mirinda, a woman of striking beauty. Together, they built a joyful life in Smallville Village. Despite his academic background, Andrew found contentment in the peaceful rhythms of village life. After 2 years, they welcomed their son, Samuel. It was like a dream life for Andrew. On days off, he cherished taking Mirinda and their son Samuel to the nearby city, relishing outings to the cinema and aqua park, and returning home brimming with happiness. As time passed, Samuel grew up and moved to the city, yet Andrew and Mirinda remained rooted in Smallville Village. Their enduring love and tranquil existence became the envy of the village, especially as Mirinda, despite being in her 50s, exuded strength and grace. However, Samuel loved city life, unlike his father. Andrew never pushed him to settle in the village, so Samuel started his family in the city. Though Andrew was initially unhappy with Samuel's choice, he didn't want to force his son. Instead, he found deep comfort in his love for Mirinda. Their 30-year marriage was a peaceful haven, free from arguments. During holidays, Samuel would visit with his wife and their eldest son, Nelson, bringing joy and laughter to Andrew's house. Andrew cherished his grandson Nelson, who eagerly joined him on the farm, helping feed the animals and tend the fields. The anticipation of Nelson's summer visits always brought Andrew immense joy. One summer, as Samuel prepared to leave with Nelson, the young boy tearfully insisted on staying with his grandfather to experience farm life and bond with him. Initially reluctant, Samuel eventually relented after Andrew assured him it would be a meaningful experience for Nelson. The following day, Andrew decided against taking Nelson to the fields due to the scorching temperatures. Instead, he spent the day at home with Mirinda, showering Nelson with treats and gifts in the evening and playing games together. When Andrew came back from the field, feeling fatigued, Nelson insisted they go for a walk in the nearby woods. Although Andrew was tired, he agreed since he hadn't taken Nelson to the fields that morning. In the woods, Nelson was thrilled. He played with the rabbits and marveled at the sounds of birds singing. Andrew, despite his exhaustion, found joy in watching his grandson's excitement. As the sun began to set, Andrew decided it was time to head back. He knew it was dangerous to stay in the woods at night. But before we go into more depth, don't forget to subscribe. We are aiming for 1,000 plus likes on this video, so be sure to like it. Let's continue the story. The next day, while plowing his field, Andrew noticed something strange near his tractor. As he approached cautiously, he was startled to find a small fox lying there. Initially shocked and worried about its family, he looked closer and realized the fox was alone and hungry. Feeling a surge of pity, Andrew carefully brought the fox home, hiding it in the garage. He fed and watered it secretly, keeping it from Mirinda and Nelson. Each evening, Andrew checked on the fox, and thankfully, it began to recover, showing signs of improvement with each meal. Andrew felt a deep sense of satisfaction watching the fox regain its strength. Initially, Andrew wanted to introduce Nelson to the fox because he believed it was important for his grandson to learn about animals. However, he hesitated, concerned about the potential risks the fox might pose to Nelson. Over time, Andrew noticed how friendly and playful the fox became whenever he opened the garage door. Convinced of its gentle nature, Andrew decided it was time for Nelson to meet their unexpected guest. When Andrew finally introduced Nelson to the fox, Nelson was taken aback at first. Approaching cautiously, he gently touched the fox and realized it posed no threat. Seeing Nelson's positive reaction reassured Andrew. He brought the fox into their home. Mirinda was surprised and initially disapproved when she saw Andrew holding the fox. However, her skepticism melted away as she witnessed Nelson bonding with the fox. She was won over by its friendly and affectionate demeanor. Mirinda eventually agreed to let the fox stay, with the condition that it would live in the backyard. But the fox, with its friendly nature, became a cherished part of their family, living in the house with Andrew. Although Andrew considered releasing it back into the wild, he hesitated for 2 reasons. The fox was still young and vulnerable, and Nelson had grown deeply attached to his new furry friend. As the holidays ended, Samuel arrived to take Nelson back home as school was starting soon. Nelson begged Andrew to let him take the fox home, wanting his furry friend with him. Andrew kindly explained that the fox belonged in the wild, and pets weren't allowed at Samuel's house. He promised to care for the fox until Nelson's next visit. Reluctantly, Nelson said goodbye to his grandparents and the fox. With Andrew's comforting words, Nelson left happily with his family, knowing his beloved fox would be safe until they could be together again. Meanwhile, Andrew and Mirinda continued to look after the fox and live happily with the fox, a new member of their family. As time passed, the fox grew older and began exploring the nearby forest more frequently, gradually visiting their home less often. A year later, when Nelson's vacation came around again, he returned with his father, and this time his younger brother Simon came along too. Nelson excitedly shared stories about the fox with Simon, piquing his curiosity about their unusual pet. When they arrived at Andrew's house, Nelson and Simon immediately searched for their fox friend, hoping to see it again. However, after looking everywhere, they couldn't find the fox. Disappointed, they asked Andrew where the fox was. With a heavy heart, Andrew explained that the fox had matured and chosen to live its life in the wild forest where it belonged. Both brothers were crestfallen and asked Andrew to take them into the forest to search for it. Despite their best efforts and Andrew's guidance, the fox remained elusive. Nelson realized that their fox had found independence and happiness in the wild, and he reluctantly accepted that they might never see it again. Although Nelson felt both sadness from missing his friend and happiness knowing the fox had found its place in the wild, fate had a surprising twist in store. One day, as Andrew repaired the roof and Mirinda prepared food for the children, they heard Nelson scream. Mirinda rushed to him and found a large poisonous snake ready to strike. She tried to scare it away, but had to retreat for safety. Panicked, she called Andrew, who grabbed a hammer and rushed to Nelson's side. When Andrew arrived, to their relief, there was no snake. Instead, Nelson was happily playing with the fully grown fox. Nearby lay a lifeless snake. It was clear the brave fox had intervened, saving Nelson just in time. The fox stayed with Nelson and Samuel for an hour, playing before disappearing back into the forest, leaving a lasting impression. Inspired by the fox's courage, Nelson decided to stay in touch with nature and help protect wildlife. He often visited Andrew and Mirinda, sharing stories of his adventures. Nelson also decided to complete his studies and live in the village, following in his grandparents' footsteps, where he could continue to cherish the memories of his beloved fox and the lessons it taught him about bravery and friendship. So, what are your thoughts about this heart-touching story? Share your opinions in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on our new animal stories. Your support means the world to us.